Hey everyone, John here, and welcome back to another Continuum tutorial. Audio Visualizer was released in Continuum 2024, and personally having a long history of motion graphic design and production, I was super excited to try Audio Visualizer with other Continuum effects and see what I could come up with. And I came up with this look. So what I'd like to do is break this down. You can download the project and follow along with me. You'll need to have Continuum 2024 installed, and we'll walk through this, and then we'll have a bit of a play and see where we can fine tune it and make some adjustments and change up the look a little bit. So let's jump in. All right, so if you are following along, just open up the main comp and double click background, because this is where most of the action is happening inside the background comp. And I've got my audio file down the bottom here. I can't include this audio file with the project, so you'll have to bring your own audio file in and just drop it into this comp. So the first layer is Audio Visualizer, new in Continuum 2024. I just grabbed one of the presets and just made a few slight adjustments. I'm just going to hit U twice on the keyboard. And here you can see the settings that I've used. Now, probably the key thing to point out here is this really long stretched pink glow. And this is happening through the secondary glow. You can see that's enabled. And you can see that my radius is quite high. If I bring that up, I can stretch that out even more. And it's really tall because I've got radius X really low. If I bring that out, you can see how that stretches that out. So I've got that nice, vertical streaky glow there, which is really nice. It's nice to have the glow included with this effect. If there's a little bit of color correction in there, just various settings. I suggest the best place to start is with the preset and then just make tweaks from that. So that's the first audio visualizer. Now, if you've dropped your audio file in there, just make sure, it's going to come up to the effect controls. Just make sure that you've selected your audio file here. You can see I've selected mine there. Okay, so we've got that pumping to the beat. I'm not going to preview that just yet. All right, so that's the first audio visualizer. Now, I've actually added a second one. I really like combining different audio visualizer looks to make more complex looks. This one's actually quite simple, and this was based on a preset without almost any changes made. Let me just go into FX editor. And the one I used here was, let's see, where is it? Just going to scroll down a little bit. I think it was that one there, mirrored blue. So I made some, minor adjustments to that. I'm not going to save my changes. And all I've done is I've used the screen blend mode and I've just blended that on top of that one. So it just adds a little more detail. Obviously, this one is connected to the audio, the same audio file. Okay. So what have we got so far? Let's do a little preview. You can see how fast Audio Visualizer is. Very nice. We'll come back and maybe make a few adjustments later. We might try something different and see how that changes the look. Now, one thing I do want to point out, which I didn't use in this look, but I thought looked really great, because the idea of this was experimentation, and I wanted to try different continuum effects. And I used curl, and you can see I've got curl applied to an adjustment layer. I'm going to turn that on. Check how this changes the look. Boom. Isn't that interesting? Gives that a really nice organic look. And just that by itself just looks so good. It wasn't quite what I wanted for this look because it was a little bit busy, but I wanted to show you anyway. How good is that? And you can also, of course, and this is the same for many continuum effects, is with curl you can also use beat reactor. And I did try a bit of beat reactor with that to sort of make the curl size pulse to the beat, but it was getting really busy. And if you've got too many things moving to the beat, then it starts to get a little too intense and you can't really tell what's going on. So that's curl. You can try that out. It's definitely worth playing with some of the settings, maybe adjusting the complexity, to sort of knock it back and make it a little more simple. a few less curls, changing the curl size. Gives it more of a sort of psychedelic look. I love that effect. Try to use it wherever I can. So I'm going to turn that off for now. And let's take a look at particle illusion. So I've got particle illusion in here as well. So I'm going to double click that comp. And we'll come into particle illusion. This is one of the presets. So I'll just quickly launch particle illusion. And just as with Audio Visualizer, with particle illusion, I often like to start with a preset. And that's exactly what I did with this. Hardly made any changes. This is the flocking dots trail preset from the 2023.5 emitters, created by Alan Lawrence, the creator of particle illusion. And the only thing I've done to this is just in the camera controls, I've just zoomed in on it. So just increase the zoom amount just to come a little closer, because this is being used as a fill inside the text, which is being used as a matte. So I wanted it to be fairly large in the frame. That's the only thing I've done there. I'm going to cancel that. And what I also want to point out with particle illusion is it also has beat reactor. And I'm just going to come and turn that on. I've got it already set up. So if I click on enable beat reactor, you can see I've already got my host sound layer. And I've chosen under apply parameter A, master size. Master size is new in particle illusion 2024. Just a little quick preview. So you can see how the size of the dots is pulsing to the beat because I've got master size linked to the audio. And that's a great look. You can definitely do that. I didn't do it in this look. Same reason that I didn't do it for curl was because with everything going on with the final look, it just was a little distracting. There was too much going on. But I just wanted to point out that master size is new and you can use beat reactor with particle illusion. So I'm just going to turn that off. And just come back, hit in the tab key, come back to background, and here's what we've got so far. So to make all this look a little more unified, I've used Super LED. And Super LED was introduced in Continuum 2023.5. I really love this look. Let's just turn this on. This is an adjustment layer. Boom. So now we've got that really nice sort of Jumbotron kind of look. And it combines the audio visualizer with the particle illusions really nicely. Let's have a quick look at the settings here. Now, scale, you need to play around with, because depending on how this is being broadcast, if they're too small, then if the dots are too small, then everything starts to get a little dark. And if they're too big, then you'll lose too much detail. I really think it depends on where you're playing this vision, where it's playing. On TV or on a Jumbotron, for example. Although if it's playing on an actual Jumbotron, I don't think you'd need to have a Jumbotron effect applied to it. But I guess the idea is that depending on how far away your Jumbotron screen is or your video screen is, would dictate how big those dots were. I just felt that the size that I had, about that size, at 100% scale was just right. A good mix of being able to see the bulbs and also see the detail. And just one thing to point out, if we go back to the audio visualizer, I've used bars here. Notice how I've used vertical style bars. If I use dots and then I use Super LED on top of dots, it's not going to work so well. So dots are great if you want to use them, but I didn't need them with Super LED. I'm going to bring that one back on, and that one and that one. Okay, just notice also that there's a few dead LEDs. So we've got, in Super LED, we've got a dead LED option, and didn't have that too high because it's a pretty broken screen if there's that many dead pixels. But I think it's fun to have just a couple of pixels that aren't working. You could also do some blinking, or pixels that are about to die, bulbs that are about to die, under the flicker settings. You can see here we've got blink LEDs. I've got that very low because I didn't really want to have that. Don't have too many blink LEDs. It starts to make it a little washed out, like that. But there is a little flicker on it. If I just drag through this, you can see how, just look at this area here. You can see how occasionally it gets a little brighter. So we're getting a bit of, the the classic LED screen flicker, which I think really adds to this. And one other thing I wanted to point out is key light. I've got that turned off, but if I wanted to add a little more detail, you can see how by adding a key light to the scene, it kind of gives a little more detail. So if we just turn that on and off like that, I might try that later. We might come back and turn that on. We'll see whether that fixes. We'll see whether that helps the look. Now, what else have we got turned on in here? Now, I haven't got video glitch turned on, although Super LED does have its own video glitch because I'm using a video glitch adjustment layer, which we'll look at in a moment. And we haven't got glow enabled. So this is actually fairly simple. There's no prism enabled and there's no smoke and fog. There's so much in Super LED that you can use to really enhance your look, but I didn't need all of that. I just wanted to sort of the basic bulb LED look. All right, now above that we have another audio visualizer, and I'm just going to solo this one. So this is actually, I think it's black or very, very dark blue, and this is based on one of the presets again. Let's have a quick preview of this one. Because Audio Visualizer has polar warp and the repeat setting in polar warp, you can get these really interesting circular visualizations. That's really nice. And the reason I put that on top of everything else is because if I put it below Super LED, just watch this section here. If I put it below Super LED, it tends to disappear a little bit. It goes a little soft. It's going to undo that. I just wanted it on top of Super LED just to be a little sharper, start to give a bit more of a layered look. You can see I do have the overlay blend mode turned on though. Okay, so I've got overlay, just a little bit of extra detail. And I really like the combination of, the sort of linear audio waveforms and the circular ones together. This is what I love about Audio Visualizer, being able to combine them for really complex looks. Very nice. Now, above that we have Continuum Orbs, and just adding some nice floating orbs in there for a little more detail. And notice how these are also above Super LED. If I put them below the adjustment layer, I like it, but it tends to sort of flatten everything out. And for the same reason that I didn't put Audio Visualizer below it, I've kept it above just to add a little more layering and maybe a little more depth. One thing I could do is I could put it below the Audio Visualizer. Just watch what happens here. Just stick it below that. And now we've got it sandwiched in between, which is really interesting as well. That might even help, enhance the look even more because they're moving behind this Audio Visualizer. So you might want to try that. I might just leave that like that for now. And to bring this all together, video glitch, Continuum video glitch, super useful effect. This will really bring everything together because it just, obviously affects everything below the adjustment layer. So everything gets that look, and it really makes this into a cohesive looking background. Let's just do a little quick preview. That's what I love about audio visualizations is there's no effort involved. It's just link it to the audio and, all the work's done. How good is that? Look at how the particles are moving and flowing. And remember what I said about not turning on Beat Reactor for the particles? Just have a look again and you can see that you probably wouldn't even notice it was turned on. You see there's a lot happening in there, isn't there? So just wouldn't see it. It's very easy to go too far with this kind of thing. So generally I'll just throw everything in the kitchen sink at it and then I'll go in reverse and pull a whole bunch of stuff out. So looking really nice. So that's the background. Just going to unsolo all of those. And once again, hit tab, come back to the main comp. All right, so I'm just going to solo that. Now we'll look at the title in a moment, but notice with the background solo that we're actually getting this kind of displaced look. That's because I'm using Continuum's Displacement Map effect. Notice here under the map, I've chosen title. Just turn that off. No displacement and displacement. Okay, so that's why we're getting that look there. And let's turn the title back on. So actually, we'll go to this one just here. This is the top one. So this is the main title. Let's double click, come into here. Now the font here is called Corpulent. This is an Adobe font if you want to sync that and you have an Adobe account. And I've actually converted my text into shape layers just so you could see the Continuum version that we're actually using for this look that I used if you didn't have that font. And I also did it because I was able to duplicate that and use a stroke version to create this kind of neon look. Let's break this down. First of all, we have our particle illusion comp, and particle illusion is being used as a fill, and the text is being used as a matte. So you can see here, Continuum outlines is being used as the matte. So back here in the main comp, you can see how that sits on top. And I really like how having the particle illusion underneath this super LED and then having a version that's inside the text makes this look really interesting because it's the same comp with the same motion, but it's almost like the text is acting as a window, and we're sort of getting sort of like an X-ray view into the LED or something like that. Just makes it a little more interesting to look at. And also notice how at the moment it's a little, it's a little sort of dirty looking and it doesn't really stand out. And I've used a few things to help this stand out a little better. The first is a duplicate of the title comp. Let me just turn the top one off. And this just has Continuum plus glow edges. And you can see how that's giving that really, really bright look. Let me just solo that. And the reason it's really nice and bright and blue like this is because I'm using glow from alpha at 100. If I bring that back to its default, and we don't even see anything, but I wanted to use the alpha for the glow here, because I find this gives us a really nice strong glow behind the text like that. Obviously, there's a few ways to add glow to text, but I like duplicating the layer and doing something like this. It just made it a little more even all the way around. So that's helping that stand out a little better, like that. Very nice. Now notice also that this main title layer, layer number 3, has this brighter edge, and that's using Continuum's light wrap effect. So this is without, which is nice. It's a nice clean look, but with light wrap applied and the wrap source being the background layer, if I just drag through this, what we're getting is better integration, but we're also getting, if you can just see that, we're getting, the flashing around the edges because it's based on the background layer. That's being used as a source. So we're getting that nice, let me just do a little preview here. We're getting that nice integration where the light source from the background wraps around the pixels of the foreground layer. I just drag that now. You can see how that's flashing there like that. So light wrap isn't necessarily always just for, human subjects to composite them into a background. I find it's really good for things like logos and text to composite into a background like that. It also gives the text almost a bit of sort of a beveled look, slightly 3D look. Now, if you didn't want to use the background, you could always just use a color, or I could use the title, so I could choose number 4, and it doesn't really give much. That's using the blue version. What I probably have to do is choose effects and masks. There we go. So now we're getting it slightly blue. Or you could just choose a color. So none, and choose solid color. And if you wanted it really bright, I've got this really bright blue here, this cyan. So I could do it that way as well. But this wouldn't be getting that sort of, syncing to the music. So I decided to go for the background layer and use that. Very nice. That's already looking really good. And like I said, it's easy to go too far, and this might be, quite enough. But I did want to add a little more interest. And that's why I use these outline strokes. You can see that really makes it pop. And what I've done here is I've used BCC Film Glow, and I've used Beat Reactor with Film Glow, and I've linked it to the secondary glow intensity. So what that's doing is it's making the glow pulse to the music. But I haven't got any audio selected, so I need to choose my audio. And I might just turn off the graph. Let's have a quick look at this. So once again, with Continuum, having Beat Reactor in many of the effects means that you can really nicely integrate all of the effects together by linking to them to the same audio source. Very nice. I might just turn on the music here. Nice. Nice. So what we might do is I'm going to turn that off. It's going to show you how I made that. So I'm going to duplicate that outlines layer and just solo that and just give myself a little more room here. So what have we got here? If we just twirl this open under contents, we have all of the letters. So I'm going to hit U, and we don't want the fill, we only want the stroke. We're going to apply the stroke as a single layer though. So what we'll do is, with that selected, type in fill, and I'm just going to select all of these fills and delete them like that. Okay, so we shouldn't see anything. But what we're going to do now is apply the stroke. So we'll come into add and we'll choose stroke. And because that's down the bottom, it's applying a stroke to everything. So I think my stroke's width was 4. So I'm going to just bring that up to 4 like that. I'm just going to turn on the bottom one. And at the moment, this is right around the edge. So what I want to do with the outline version, come back in and just going to add a offset paths like that and bring that after the stroke, and then just we're going to change the offset amount, bring that in like that. And that's exactly how I created that. Okay, so it's nice. I mean, you can use text, of course, and text is great because you can change the text, but I'll often use my text and leave it set up in here. I've changed this to rave, but then I can go back and change it if I need to. But using shape layers in this way gives me a lot of flexibility to be creative. And of course, to this one, I've also applied the film glow effect as well. So, and if you've got the project open, you can see my film glow settings. So I won't do that. So I'm going to, let's see, turn that one off or delete that one, turn that one back on, and there's my look. So I've left that linked to the Beat Reactor and come back to my main comp. Looking good. So the last couple of effects are film glow. I'm going to turn on the film glow effect. So this is just on adjustment layer just to bring out a little more of that pink. We just select that. You can see I've got a very, very hot pink there. And not too much, just I think the threshold's, pretty high. If I bring that down, it's going to just blow that out too much. And once again, I could always link that to Beat Reactor as well. So that's definitely a possibility. And above that, I think just to finish this whole look and really help the text be more integrated with the background, I've used Super LED again above everything. So I duplicated my Super LED adjustment layer into this comp, and all I did was I just changed the scale. Remember we used 8 before? I changed that to 4, and it's not affecting the background too much, but you can see how it's just affecting the foreground more obviously, because obviously that didn't have any Super LED applied. So to me, that kind of looks like it's behind kind of a wire mesh or something like that. And I think that looks really nice. So I like to use, multiple versions of the same effect in that way to give that, a really nice finished look. Really makes that look nicely integrated. And I do actually kind of like how this Super LED is kind of affecting the background. Notice I've got Prism active. If we turn that off, you can see how that's affecting the background. So we're using Prism and giving us that nice, RGB separation across the whole thing. Really nice look. And I really like how the displacement is really helping integrate that into the background. All right, so I'm pretty happy with that look, but what I'd like to do for the last 5 or 10 minutes is just go back and fine tune a few settings, try a few other things, and see if we can refine this just a little bit more. So first thing I'm going to do from the view menu is just choose new viewer. I like to see what's happening in the main comp, and I'll leave that one there. That's locked. That's good. So for this one, what we'll do is we'll go into the background and let's just take a look at a couple of settings in here. Now, this audio visualizer here, one thing I didn't mention was it has a gradient background. You can see here under background, it's set to gradient. And there's a dark purple, a blue, and a dark purple. Now, it might look good if we better leave it so we can see everything. It might look good if we just adjust that. So with that selected, just grab the gradient points here and just bring these down just to decrease the amount of blue. Maybe make it a little closer to the text, just hug the text a little bit closer. You can see I'm just eyeballing this, they're not perfectly in line, it doesn't really matter. Just a little bit less, it actually gives us a little bit more detail in there, not so washed out. So that's quite good. Another thing I wanted to look at was with Super LED. We mentioned this before, the key light. I'm just going to zoom in here a little bit and just turn on the key light just to add a little bit more detail. Gives it almost a sort of 3D look. What do you think? I'm going to turn that on and off a couple of times just to see how that looks. I mean, it's adding a bit more white in this area, and whether that looks better or not, I'm not sure. It might be making the background a little too strong. I just wanted to give that a bit of a go, but that's not quite working. Now, I made some notes for myself. Another thing I want to check is the audio visualizer scale. Now, they do tend to come fairly high in certain points. So, I mean, let's try this blue one first. We might want to actually make the blue one a little higher. So just bring the scale up so the blue pops out a little higher, and come back to the other one and just decrease the scale so the whitey pink one just doesn't go up quite as high. You see? So now that's a little bit lower. So we've got a bit more variation between them. So once you have all your settings in here, adjusting the scale is a good way just to add a little bit more or a little bit less. So I think that's all I want to do for that. Now, what else? Well, we could try Beat Reactor with a couple of the other effects. For example, with Orbs. Orbs has a beat reactor. So what if we enable that and we chose the music? And I don't need to see the graph. It's going to go with the default settings. So I'm going to choose no. And for unused A, we're going to choose, or you could choose speed or intensity. I'm going to choose scale. That's going to make them really big. So it's probably going to be way too much. Let's put the output max at, say, I don't know, 35. And we'll just do a little preview. And remember what I said about having too much of a good thing? Having these scale up as well could just be way too much. But I just wanted to show you that that's an option. Just going to set my work area here. Okay, so it definitely works, but I think that's way too much. So I'm going to turn that off. Another thing to point out is that video glitch also has Beat Reactor, so we could turn that on there. And once again, select the audio, and we can control things, like glitch intensity, for example. So this could be quite good. I don't know whether we're really going to be able to see it very well, but it might just knock some of the glitching back a little bit to the beat. Just a little quick preview. And it's pretty hard to tell. Obviously, we'd have to do a side-by-side comparison, but it is knocking it back just a little bit, so I'm going to leave it. Now, the last thing I want to look at is the title. We haven't got a lot of action happening with the title, and I think what would be good in here is if we go back to the background, grab Video Glitch, copy that adjustment layer, paste this at the top. Now this is going to be way too much, and also you can see it's using a background color. I'm just going to turn that off. So I'm going to leave it exactly the same settings, but I'm going to bring glitch intensity right down to about 5. So this will give us the same glitchiness, but not quite as much. I mean, 5 might be a bit too much. Maybe we can do, 2. Just a little bit of glitch. So when we go back to the main comp, we're going to have just a little bit of glitch in there as well. And I think that will just make all the difference. I do also think that the film glow is making the pink neon a little bit too bright. So if we turn that off, you can see it's just a little bit too much. We could bring it down below the titles and do it that way. That might be a little better. And let's do one more final preview. And there you go. As you can see, the possibilities are endless with Continuum. And if you're like me, you'll probably find yourself spending hours just tweaking, just to, zero in on that perfect look. I hope you found that useful. Leave a comment. If you want to learn more about Continuum, please visit borisfx.com, where you can also download a demo. For now, this is John. I'll see you in the next tutorial.